Hello and welcome to the news on HOMEF TV. I am Kome Odomo. First, the highlights. International conference addresses environmental damages in Niger Delta. Energy transition discourse involves community participation. Now the news in details. The International Conference on Petroleum Pollution and Just Transition in the Niger Delta focused on the report from the Bayelsa State Commission titled Advancing the Recommendations of the Bayelsa State Oil and Environment Commission. The research on the impact of oil spills and gas flaring in the Niger Delta has recommended that at least $12 billion would be required over 12 years to repair, remediate, and restore the environment and public health caused by environmental damage in the region. Our correspondent, Onome Etisero, completes the report.
The report extensively x-rayed the challenges faced by the people of Bayelsa following the involvement of oil and gas extraction, noting that the environment itself has become a crucible of suffering. The unrelenting barrage of environmental degradation has transformed Bayelsa into an epicenter of health crisis, forging a reality where illness and suffering have become the norm rather than the exception. The Bayelsa State Oil and Environmental Commission, chaired by the Honorable John Tokasen Tamu, a member of the House of Lords, undertook the research to state the challenges faced by the people of Bayelsa State. In his welcome address, the Executive Director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Dr. Nimo Basi, said the conference comes at a pivotal moment for the socio-ecological history of Nigeria, noting that extractivism and accompanied pollution has wreaked extensive damage on the physical, socio-economic, and cultural spheres of our national life.
The report sets out a proposal to end decades-long cycles of contamination and neglect by the oil gas industry. Safe and cleaner oil company operations will not be enough to end Bayelsa's pollution nightmare. The fossil fuel-generated climate crisis is also destroyed Bayelsa ecosystems. So the 12 billion fund should lay the foundation of a renewable energy-powered future in the place.
What are we asking for? We have 10 recommendations. You can look at them in the report, but I'll just flag a few. We're asking for a recovery plan for Bayelsa as priority. The urgency is something that we really underscored. And this is a recovery plan that must include cleanup and rehabilitation.
4 keywords stand out for me concerning all this and the way forward. One is remediation, another is recovery, another is restoration, and of course, reparation. These are key scaffolds for building our way out of the hole that extractivism and accompanying pollution have pushed us into. Now is the time to forge the pathways to the future we desire. There's a clear need to declare a state of environmental emergency in the oil-producing communities of Nigeria. It's time for a comprehensive environmental, social, and health audit of the entire region. The process must now be put in place to expand the work of the Hydrocarbons Pollution Remediation Project, HYPREP, to cover the entire Niger Delta.
The Bayelsa State Governor, Doye Diri, faulted the international oil company's activities, saying they flagrantly devastated the soil and water resources of the Niger Delta. Lauding the report's findings, he harped on implementing the report.
Let me be clear on this, that as a government, we are prepared to implement the recommendations of this commission 100%. Urgent intervention is needed, but we cannot do this alone. The magnitude of our challenges require the involvement of global and local stakeholders, international alliances, compassionate nations, and responsible organizations willing to stand alongside with us.
I use this opportunity to call for support for the governor and the government of our state to rise to the challenge of propagating the work of this commission. Whatever platforms that we have, we use it to draw attention and also speak to all our policymakers and leaders, governors, legislators, ministers from the Niger Delta need to come together to articulate what is a common threat
and then raise these issues and engage policymakers and at some point the president, who needs to know the extent of devastation, degradation, what I termed environmental terrorism, which is still continuing, and what the Commission has confirmed to be genocide.
The Commission formally presented the report to the Bayelsa State government and its executive to adopt as a working document. The fight for the Niger Delta's environmental survival cannot be reduced to mere shadow boxing. It demands concrete action, unwavering commitment, and collective responsibility. Onome Etisiro for HOMEF TV.
In recognition of the importance of ensuring a just, equitable, and inclusive energy transition in Nigeria, community representatives, civil society organizations, and local leaders convened a community engagement workshop to discuss integrating justice imperatives into the National Energy Transition Plan. Various key outcomes and agreements were reached, and communities committed to taking responsibility. Mabel Obaseki files in the details.
Community representatives, civil society organizations, local leaders, and government officials gathered to address Nigeria's urgent need for a just and equitable energy transition, with the Niger Delta at the heart of fossil fuel extraction. Participants emphasized the necessity of including communities in national energy discussions. Dialogues highlighted critical concerns, including the growing impact of climate change on rural and extractive communities, their exclusion from Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan (ETP), and ongoing environmental degradation resulting from fossil fuel activities. Participants also raised concerns about gas flaring, the affordability of clean energy, and the risk posed by illegal mining for transition minerals.
We are here to engage with communities in Niger Delta to say, look, you have to make your voice heard. You have to, as the process, as government is talking about energy transition, here are the things that you need to know so that you can press your case, so that you can make sure that your needs and interests are heard and amplified. We are also pushing at the federal level as well as the foundation to also say to people who are planning Nigeria's energy transition that you need to come and listen to people in the Niger Delta. You need to make sure that this energy transition is not just about the big things, but also about the things that communities care about.
It is very worrisome that the national grid should be collapsing so frequently. And especially when the government is talking about generating more power. If the less than 4,000 megawatts we are producing now cannot be carried successfully by the national grid, what will happen if we generate more electricity? That's why I'm saying that the national grid is not the solution, unfortunately. When a community has a power system, is tailored to meet their needs, and they know how much is being generated and how to manage what they have. And then, of course, they will also maintain it. We've heard of communities that have not had power for almost 1 year just because something broke down in the power supply system. And then they're waiting for government to restore that, and government is not forthcoming. But if it's something that communities manage, they have the technical know-how, they have people training the communities to run those systems, the situation will be different.
Participants from communities expressed their concern, stating that without proper consultation and inclusion of their communities, the energy transition will happen without them, further deepening the environmental damage and socio-economic struggles they already face as a people.
The high cost of gas in my community is very high. Like before, it was 800 naira. It's not even up to 800 naira. I still remember 2018, 2019, 2020. It was 350, while some places was 400, 450. But now it's not like that. Some places is 1,600, 1,700. Even some interior area in my community there is always 1,800 naira. That is why sometimes I drop gas and I cook with firewood.
Time gas was 500, 450. I've been there managed, but now gas is 17, as my sister talk. Even before you will buy that 17 safe, you will pay transport again, follow. So the thing come dey cost well for me. That's why I leave. The stress too much now, because before you go find firewood, carry come. Before you go tear am, before you go bring, so process to cook with firewood is too much. So it's worrying me well.
Knowledge that I gathered today will also contributed in my community to follow the due process so that we achieve what we're supposed to achieve in our community.
The workshop emphasized integrating justice imperatives into the National Energy Transition Plan. At the core of discussion were inclusive decision-making processes, fair access to the transition's benefits and burdens, and compensating communities for historical environmental damage. Several accountability mechanisms were proposed to ensure fairness, including independent community-led monitoring committees and public accountability audio to track the government progress in implementing these imperatives, with communities actively monitoring through peaceful advocacy and collaborations. A communique which was developed at the end of the meeting underscores the need for inclusivity and justice as Nigeria navigates its transition to a cleaner energy source. Mebe Obaseki for HOMEF TV.
Health of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, has trained fishermen in the Wakrike axis of River State to monitor the environmental pollution and other environmental dangers. According to HOMEF, the training was aimed at sensitizing fishermen in the community and other locals to the need to monitor and promptly report cases of environmental degradation. The training became necessary following the environmental pollution occasioned by oil activities that ravaged the area.
Okrika, an island and a home to many traditional fishers, has long been impacted by oil spills, gas flaring, and pollution linked to the presence of oil and gas companies. These environmental issues have caused immense hardship, affecting livelihoods and the ecosystem. In response to these challenges, Health of Mother Earth Foundation organized a capacity building workshop to equip community members with environmental monitoring, reporting, and advocacy skills. Stephen Oduwari, lead of the fossil politics at HOMEF, noted at the training that if nothing is done to safeguard the environment, climate change, coastal erosion, and other oil spills will affect communities. Kentebel Ebiarido, a facilitator at the event, charged the communities to unite and work in solidarity to achieve their aim of achieving environmental justice.
We know that the community is, on one hand, sandwiched by the impact of climate change, sea level rise, coastal erosion, and all of that. And then on the other hand, the impact of oil spills in the community. That alone is a huge challenge. And the route to recovery is actually problematic because every day things are getting more difficult because the communities are not being heard in spite of the impact that they are facing. So we have come here to strengthen ourselves, to tell them that we are with them, including the media that are here, to ensure that that right is preserved, that right is protected, and that they have a right to a healthy and a pollution-free environment.
The essence of it was to just see how communities can come together and talk among themselves, and the importance of oneness in a community, because without oneness, everybody will just be talking in silos. And when you talk like that, you don't get anything done. So the most important thing about all of this is that how communities can leverage on solidarity to be able to achieve things for themselves, and most especially for their development. They should keep being together as one. They should forget all issues around culture, social inclusiveness or social exclusiveness. They should forget every other thing that has to do with economic barriers and all of that, to be together as one, irrespective of their gender, irrespective of their race, irrespective of their religion and all that, but come together as a community to speak with one voice at all times.
Participants at the training hailed HOMEF for allowing them to benefit from the sensitization, while they lamented the impact of the pollution and environmental degradation on their source of livelihood.
I have learned a lot greatly, and I want to thank HOMEF for coming out timely for this wonderful sensitization program for us to, for community solidarity, community integration, and all the rest. We've suffered greatly. For instance, I came out from a fisherman's family. My grandparents and my great-grandparents are very, very great fishermen. And because of these environmental problems, we've lost a lot of our fishing settlements. For instance, I'm going to tell you one around Bonai. It is called Uwogono. And there is another one before Bonai. You will call it Boloba and Oferekri. And we have Dutch Island here, which is about 200 meters away, 200 meters above sea level. Now, the waves that are coming in from the sea tankers, the vessels coming to bat at the NNPC jetty over here are eating that place up because it is sandfield. Because of this impact of environment, because we are not together, everything because of, how do you say, greed and selfishness, self-centeredness, we've lost it all. But with this program that you've told us today, I think we are taking something home.
So I come, I like them. I tell them, I'm going to thank you. Because we suffer, I suffer, and I don't come find them. Why they will suffer so? Maybe we tell them something and not go help us. Now we see something to, we not go hide them. We can't tell them, na so, not gonna help us. Now so we will talk. Fight to come, no fight. The one we see, we go tell them, na so.
The importance of monitoring and advocacy for what is needed as community members were emphasized. Community members were charged with using solidarity to achieve things for themselves and their environment. The workshop include 50 participants from various Okrika communities. Nena Abo for HOMEF TV.
Thank you, Nena, for that report. And when we return, we'll go to Senegal.
So, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about events in Africa, one big shot is the Nigerian Food Festival happening in the city of Benin on the 26th of November 2024. You won't want to miss a bit of this great event. There, we will be displaying different foods as it represents our culture. Of course, Africans are known for their traditional food systems, and this is what we tend to promote at the Nigerian Food Festival here in the ancient city of Benin, where the king is truly king, where we say, Oba Tokpe Ise. This is the Nigerian Food Festival. Don't miss it for anything.
Given the shrinking civic space in many countries, the African People's Counter Corp and Women Climate Assembly have become platforms to build community resilience and survival. This has affected Africans' capacity to respond to climate change impacts through solutions that shared a unified understanding and political action towards real solutions to African climate's ecological and social crisis. Esele, who is in Senegal, completes the report.
The African People's Counter Corp recognizes that African voices have largely been excluded from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change Conference of Parties, which is captured by the Global North and corporations that continue to fuel climate crisis while falsely claiming to solve the causes of climate change. The Counter Corp is therefore a movement to denounce the COP system while highlighting the impacts of climate change on African communities and showcasing viable alternative solutions. Women from over 20 countries across West and Central Africa assembled at the Women's Climate Assembly to share experiences and stories on the impacts of the global climate crisis, oppression, gender-based violence, and ecocide, which has resulted in the displacement, loss of livelihoods and damages, harassment, and even death of community members. In a field visit to Bagni and Moloji communities in Sali to see how sea encroachment has recently displaced families and destroyed sources of livelihoods.
As you can clearly see, we have resilient women from across Africa who are united against systematic oppression, against the injustice that is happening in the climate space. They are currently speaking out and crying out for justice for their lands, reparations for all their damaged lands, and the losses to be compensated for the environmental degradation that are currently ongoing in their environments. As you can see, the women and the men are protesting in the sea on the streets of Sali, Senegal, screaming out to their authorities to listen out to their cries of abuse, listen out to their cries of oppression, listen to their cries of their loss of livelihoods, and are saying that they want an end to fossil extraction and they want their climate debts to be paid. And most importantly, they want climate justice to happen right now.
We are demanding transparency and the implementation of climate-related projects in my country. We want to know what are the details of the activities. We want them to ensure that the interests of the women are also captured in every decision that they are making in relation to climate change.
As you can see, we're a group of different nationalities. Some have come from Southern Africa, some from Eastern and Western and Central Africa. What we are demanding as people from Africa is that we demand climate justice. Climate justice in different ways. We want food that is safe for us to eat, the food that we can have control over, which means we need land, we need seed, we need water access that is good for us as the people of Africa.
The communities are suffering from the climate impacts, and nothing is really done to sort of mitigate the situation. They're trying to do some adaptations, actions, but actually they are not really successful because the money or the finance is not gathered toward the community women. So we are really calling for real actions. We are calling our authorities to do their best to listen to the voices of the communities.
This is SLA Ojanelo reporting from Sali, Senegal, HOMEF TV.
Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, has hosted its third National Climate Change Conference, calling for the $210 billion investment to tackle global greenhouse gas emission by 2030. The annual event, themed Channeling Action Towards Just Sustainable Climate Finance, advocates for equitable climate finance that will support both mitigation and adaptation measures in Africa. Our correspondent Stanley Egolo completes the report.
The Executive Director of Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, Akimbode Oluwafemi, has noted that Africa and the rest of the Global South bears the biggest brunt of climate crisis despite their insignificant contributions to global emissions. Oluwafemi expressed concerns over the disposition of polluters who deliberately refuse to accept historical liabilities and commit to reparatory justice through progressive and sustainable grants and not loans for climate change financing. The Executive Director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, HOMEF, Dr. Nimo Basi, while speaking on key climate justice issues, said temperatures must be kept below 1.5 degrees above industrial levels, noting that carbon budgets must be divided equitably according to the CBDRO capacity and right to sustainable societies.
Of the Global South are bearing the biggest brunt of climate crisis despite their insignificant contributions to global emission. What remains worrisome is the unbordered disposition of polluters at the global north and their deliberate refusal to accept historical liabilities, commit to reparatory justice through progressive and sustainable grants and not loans for climate financing.
We need to tackle our imagination, our imaginaries. And for Africa to hope to come out of the COP system on a positive note, we must begin to insist that polluters cut emissions at source. They can't pollute in the global north and designate areas in the global south as carbon sinks. It's insulting, it's unjust, and it's unacceptable.
In his remark, Minister of Environment Balarabe Lawal said that Nigeria needs more funds to build a climate-resilient and environmentally sustainable future. Lawal, who is represented by Mrs. Victoria Paul, noted that for Nigeria, effective climate finance must be inclusive ensuring it reaches the most vulnerable and helps empower those on the front lines of climate change. In her remarks, Ms. Faith Nwandichi, the Executive Director, Center for Transparency Advocacy, said the recent devastating incident caused by flooding in Borno State also illustrated the urgent need for effective climate finance. She stated that the global crisis demands urgent action, with its impact most acute in vulnerable regions.
Climate finance is more than a financial tool. It is a pathway towards achieving equitable and sustainable solutions for communities across our nation. For Nigeria, effective climate finance must be inclusive, ensuring it reaches the most vulnerable and helps empower those on the front lines of climate change.
We should, as African countries, as the bottom 50%, without resources, but with 70% of the impact of the activities of those that have the resources. We need to be able to reach an agreement that will help us address all of this. So that when they are putting this on the table, it's not about a textbook review, but because they wear the shoe and they know where it pinches, we need to bring the numbers to the table and be able to address the politics in a way that will help to sustain our countries and make us relevant going forward in the next decade.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, estimates that global investment and financial flows of $200 to $210 billion will be needed by 2030 to meet the global greenhouse gas emission target of below 1.5 degrees set in the Paris Agreement. It is estimated that the region will need an average of $250 billion per year in climate finance between 2020 and 2030 against the paltry sum of $30 billion it received in 2020, which is about 12% of the amount needed. Stanley Egolo for HOMEF TV.
The East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline host communities organized a peaceful demonstration and delivered a petition paper to the President of Uganda, the Chief Justice of Uganda, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Development, and the Principal Judge, demanding for the protection and respect of their human environmental rights. The demonstration emerged as a response to the concerns of over the recent court ruling ordering the eviction of 42 families in the Bulisa district to make way for the Tilinga oil project without being compensated in line with the Ugandan law and international best practices. These 42 families are on the brink of losing their homes and livelihoods due to an unjust eviction order. These families were offered inadequate compensation for their land, which is crucial for survival. Additionally, several families have unresolved land ownership disputes that were completely ignored in court proceeding. The demonstration was participated by over 100 youths and women from the Albertine region. However, their initial attempt to deliver the petition was met with resistance from the court registrar, citing missing information. The following were the objectives of the peaceful demonstration, which is to immediately stop the eviction order of the 42 households affected by the Tilinga oil project, to stop all oil and gas activities that are continuing to undermine human and environmental rights of host communities, charging the President of Uganda and other relevant authorities to listen and address the highlighted grievances and demands of oil-affected communities. And that's the news on HOMEF TV. I am Kome Odomo.